Hello and welcome back to the Quantum Health Connection podcast. Thank you so much for being here. I'm your host, Vanessa Baldwin, with my amazing co-host, Heather Crimson. And today we have Michelle with us. I'm so excited. She is a flower essence practitioner and an herbalist, she was just telling us as well. But she's mainly using Bach flower essences now. And I found Michelle because I had an interest in flower essences and I started fumbling through YouTube, like, how can I learn more? Where can I learn more? And she has the most amazing YouTube channel with amazing videos about flower essences and how to use them. And I just was started diving into all your information, Michelle, and was like, I want to know more and learn more from you. And then I just was like, you know what? Let's get you on the show and let's have you sharing more about flower essences. So welcome so much. We're so excited to have you here today.
Thank you so much. I'm very excited to be here as well.
Yeah.
So, Michelle, help us understand how you got here. What is your evolution from earlier in life, and then herbalism, and then Stoic Herbalist, and then now you're in Bach Flower Remedies? I want to know about that, how you got here.
Yeah, my road to the Bach Flower Remedies wasn't very straightforward. Even though that was always in the stars for me, I was always interested in natural healthcare and that spiritual side of things. The way I grew up was just extremely chaotic, and I had this kind of get out of the house as fast as possible, study, get a job, have a normal life because where I come from, that was not very normal. It was very chaotic. Mom died early, dad was alcoholic, brother was schizophrenic, and so on and so forth. And so, growing up in that household, it really left a big shadow on my back. Everything that you do in life is kind of tainted by the state you are in when you grow up like that. So I was very anxious, very responsible, people pleaser, and so on and so forth.
Mm.
And around my 13, I started to get a little bit weak, let's say. And when I was about 16-year-old, I was very, very ill. I could hardly go to school. After school, I would just fall asleep. So after a long period of finding out what was going on with me, I was diagnosed, let's say, with chronic fatigue, which doesn't really mean anything, just means that, you're tired and no one knows what you have. And so with that kind of, in the beginning, I was so happy to have that diagnosis because I was like, yeah, I know what I have, but you don't know
Yeah.
what you have. And I was still very much looking, because I was kind of left with no help. I was really doing everything I could to get myself out of that situation because, I couldn't work. I didn't have any financial resources. I didn't have any family. I met the wrong people. I also started to drink, and things were just going really, really very bad for me.
Mm.
And at some point, with the last amount of money I had, I made a really strange, very, one would say, irresponsible decision, somehow the opposite of how I've always been. And I just said, you know what? I'm going to do something that I really like. I'm going to study herbalism.
Nice.
And when I entered the school there, I felt like Harry Potter. It was truly, it was amazing. It was about the folklore, it was a little bit with some spirituality, it was about ancient techniques of this and that and all the knowledge, and I loved it. And so I just noticed that despite that I was still tired, I always had enough energy to go to school. I loved it.
Yeah.
And there I studied further. Then I also studied food because I was just surrounded by more like-minded people, and I just felt good when I was there. And I was so interested in all that. And then at some point, I met a lady, which was one of the teachers there. And she became sort of my nature therapist and then my mentor. And she
Mm.
started using Bach Flower Remedies on me. And in the beginning, actually, were a mushroom remedy that she used on me. And that was when I wasn't fully aware yet of everything that was happening in my family. All these, it was very manipulative, the situations. Even if everybody suffered in their own way, there was a big stream of manipulation. And, when there is a bad dynamic and everybody keeps it like that, and I'm like the person who doesn't want to keep it like that. And so when I took these mushroom remedies, which was for bringing, up that kind of awareness of all that,
Mm.
I saw everything so clearly. Like it was almost like it was so clearly, it was right in front of my face. And I was a little bit like, how in God's name could I have not seen that? Or why didn't I want to see it? Because almost not impossible, you know? It's almost impossible to not see that. And everybody was already making me aware, but I was like, what shall I do? It's my family and this and that. And so that was a little bit the start for me. But at the same time, I was also learning in school about Bach Flower Remedies. So it was interesting to learn about them as a student and at the same time as a client, as I wouldn't say patient, of course, because, you know, we're not healing, we're not doctors, etc. And I really, I mean, the change that, like, my whole world was just terrible. Like, my youth was terrible. I was in my 20s. Everything was a disaster. I was extremely nihilist. And then I started taking these tiny little innocent drops from Santori for boundaries, for, you
Yeah,
know, against
century.
people
Yeah.
pleasing,
Uh-huh. Yep.
and find that help with guilt.
Mhm.
Hmm.
And so very gently, I started saying no a little bit more often. And I didn't, you know, make a big deal out of it. I didn't feel guilty, or I wasn't like, oh, shall I say this, or what will happen, or poor them, or was just like, no, I can't do that right now. I don't have the capacity for that, or I just don't feel good enough for that. And
Mm.
so, you know, that created some space in my life. And then that little moment just changed everything for me because it really rippled through my whole life. I had more time, I felt better, I became more interested in these remedies. I started to use them on my friends and family, so I became really good at understanding them. And the I really would say that if I wouldn't have taken these remedies, I don't even think I would even still be here. And
Mm.
so, because I was doing all that with my friends and my family, I started doing that. I mean, I was just doing that the whole time. So I said, okay, I cannot keep doing this for free. I mean, I need
Yes.
to do something here because I just can't anymore. You know, again, people pleaser, you know. So,
Yep. Hmm.
and then I decided to just do that as my job. And that went just so well. I think I just kind of found my calling there. And because I was always interested in studying a lot, so I have a background in, I don't really know how you say that in English, but it's like something between a caretaker and a social worker. So I worked with people in difficult situations. Then I had a bachelor degree in ecology. Then I had improved a short bachelor to give classes. So I had a little bit educational background. And then I was like, okay, well, I have these degrees now. What do I do with that? You know, like I have the Bach flower stuff, which I really am interested in, or I can just follow the normal path. But I just didn't see a future there for me at all. I just didn't see it. And, you know, then I started you know, study esoteric sciences or biomagnetism, all these kind of
Yeah.
niche things. And and also, of course, Stoicism was something that has helped me through my life because I just really love that attitude that you kind of flow with nature. Stoicism is very down to earth. You know, it's really like let go of what you can't, you know, help. What is there, what you can change, just let go of it. But do your best, you know, be courageous, look at yourself. If you need to kick yourself in the butt, kick yourself in the butt, get back up. You know, it's important to not be,
Yeah.
oh, my life is terrible, I'm gonna die.
It
No,
gets
come
you,
on,
it
you
sounds
know.
like it gets you out of the victim mindset for sure, right?
Oh yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely. I mean, it's and in a way, I've also seen that despite of all these things happening to me, I mean, I didn't choose for my father to be like that. I didn't choose for my mother to die, but I can clearly see that there is a sort of a responsibility that I was carrying, maybe in staying there too long,
Yeah.
you know, maybe in being too kind. And so
Mhm.
that stoicism was really the understanding of it deeply was a big turning point in my life. And so that is something that I use in my practice with my clients a lot. I don't want to convince someone that they can change things. You know, I'm like, okay, if you come in my practice, we're gonna work. You know, we're gonna take things in hand.
Mm.
And yeah, luckily people seem to appreciate that that approach. And
Yeah.
yeah.
Ah, what a
So
beautiful
yeah,
story.
and then I started my you know, actually I thought it's so silly because Bach Flower Remedies, you can totally do this yourself. Bach intended for people to do this
Yeah.
themselves. And so then I started, I made my course, and then I made a YouTube channel because I was like, nobody knows about this. What's going on? And we need to.
Right. Right. Even I, like I said, I studied Heather and I both studied homeopathy, and we weren't taught about flower essences at all. And then I started learning, and I'm like, oh my goodness, they actually act deeper than homeopathy in a lot of ways on the subconscious and the mental emotional. And I was like, this is something that I need to learn more about. But I just loved your transformation story. It just hit me so home. I didn't really know this about you. So this was like so beautiful to hear that you really turn darkness into light, basically is what you did, and it's just so beautiful, and I just love it. And yeah, century and pine are great. I'm curious what the mushroom remedies were, so I don't know those ones, but you could share them if you want or at another time. But yeah,
Oh my
so
God, yeah. This
I don't
is
know anything about that, so that's like I just it's so expansive. There's just so much to know, and like I love that you said that like Bach intended for us to have these, like it's nature's medicine kit, right? I think of the same
yeah.
thing with homeopathy. It's literally using nature to heal, and it's
Hmm.
just matching that vibrational, imprint basically. And
Hmm.
it was so beautiful, and I'm just so proud of you. Like I wanted to tell you that, like
Oh
what a
my God.
beautiful, amazing story. Like I'm so proud that you could have been a totally, it could have changed, could have went a totally different way, right? And you
Yeah.
just, yeah, it's amazing. So good job.
Thank you so much. That's very sweet.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
I certainly could
So
resonate with your background, and I too had a very challenging childhood, and then I had a chronic fatigue
yeah,
episode in 2000. It started around 2008 or 9, but then the full force. Luckily, I wasn't bedridden, but a lot of times I felt like I wish I were, because I was just, even just
Yeah.
serving my clients was so exhausting. I did find out about Rescue Remedy in the early 90s, but it just, in as well as homeopathy, but it didn't stick because there's so many things, herbs, this and that, and I was
Hmm.
mostly focused on food. Now I realize that's just one element, and I'm so
Yeah.
keen to hear about eventually when you share with us today, Michelle, about how your understanding of Bach Flower Remedies works for us. And then
Hmm.
you also address like the deeper layers beyond even the
Hmm.
emotional layers. So I've never heard that. I always hear that they're mainly to address the mental and the emotional. So I want to know about all of that.
Yeah. So for those who've never heard about Bach Flower Remedies, they are basically energetic imprints from flowers that work on our difficult emotions. For instance, fear, sadness, hopelessness, anger, rigidity, and so on. And they are made by simply laying the flowers on the surface of the water for 3 to 4 uninterrupted sun hours. So there's really the elements, nature's kind of doing its own thing, and you just really need to not interfere. That's the only thing you need to do.
I love
And
that
by
part about the sunlight, how it infuses the energy. Like that's one of my favorite things I learned about it. I was like, oh, this is even
yeah,
more exciting now. Good.
and just the way to make it already, it's simple, it's free, it's easy.
Yeah.
Just that, it just blows my mind. But when you do that, you can't really extract any phytonutrients or nothing of the plant. You're only extracting the vibrational energy of the plant. So that means that it's also, there's nothing physically there. That's why a lot of people say, oh, this is nonsense, because, well, they're, in the materialistic, looking at the materialistic level. And so because there's nothing there, they're also super safe. They're non-addictive. They're you can take them with medicines or with treatments if you're on something. And they're basically drops in water, so you just frequently take them every single day for a few weeks, and that will change your state. And Dr. Bach, he invented the system, not the flowers, because they're truly made from wildflowers in the 1930s. And he chose, let's say, 38 of them for the most basic states that anybody can recognize. So let's say anxiety, known anxiety, you're scared of dogs, or you have a public speaking event, you're scared, you would take mimulus. You have sudden sadness, you could take mustard. Maybe you feel super angry, you take holly. You have trauma, you take Star of Bethlehem, and so on and so on. So that's the basic kind of knowledge. And just knowing that, just doing this, saying I feel sad, I'm gonna take mustard. I feel guilty, I'm gonna take pine. Just that is enough to truly do so much amazing work with your life. That's the only thing I knew when I was working with them, when I really saved my ass out of terrible situations. That was it, really truly enough. So I don't want to, because we can go really deep with them, but I definitely don't want to discourage people who've never heard about them, that they think like it's very difficult. It's extremely easy. You feel how you
Yeah.
feel and you match that to the flowers. Now, in my opinion, when you do that, and there's nothing wrong with it, you're somehow working with the symptoms. Let me explain with an example, maybe. So let's assume you want to quit your job. You just feel it. You feel it in every cell of your body. You know, I have to get out. Maybe your job is great. You love it. It's everything you want, but you just feel that you can't stay there anymore. And so then you start to kind of, tell that to your environment, and you talk to your husband or your wife, and they're a bit surprised, like, oh, okay, yeah, I didn't know that, but all right, yeah, I mean, if you want to change, that's how it is, but you kind of feel a little bit, there's sort of, maybe the way that you spoke about it, or you start already to have a little strange feeling about it. And then, you say it to your parents, and they're, of course, very worried about your financial security, and you have such a good position, and I mean, this job is awesome, and you loved it. And you're like, yeah, that makes sense. True, yeah. Rationally, that makes sense. And then you tell it to your friends, and your friends are like, what? Are you out of your mind? And I have to drive an hour to get to work, and I hate my job, and you have everything. And so you start to doubt yourself. You start to doubt your decision. So that would be a Serato example. So Serato would be the flower for self-doubt.
Mm.
Now, a good practitioner doesn't have to hear the cue, and the cue of Serato for self-doubt would be if you're asking other people for advice. So if you hear someone saying very often, "What would you do if you were me?" That's Serato. But if a good practitioner could really read between the lines and would really see, oh, okay, no one uttered that sentence. No one said, "What would you do if you were me?" But clearly the person knows what they want, and then start to doubt because of other people's input.
Hmm.
Now, what's really happening, in my opinion, is that self doubt is just a symptom of something much, much deeper. So, what really happens when you think about it is there is, of course, obviously self doubt, but the person knows what they want. They kind of decided that they want to quit. And then everybody comes with a sort of a negative input. And even if it's done with love and with good intentions and everything. And then you kind of doubt, and then you stay a year longer, and then 1 year turns into two, and two into three, and three into 10, and 10 turns into burnout because you didn't follow your road. And so, on a deeper level, what you're actually doing almost, or kind of, is asking others for permission to change. Because you know that you want to change, you feel it, you hear it clearly. But then, reality sets in, you start to doubt yourself. That's the self doubt, the symptom. And if you would go even, I always call that the transformational level. It's almost like there's an emotional level. I call it the transformational level. And then there is even a more spiritual, more deeper level. And that level is really where you clearly, in this case with Serato, you clearly hear the self saying, change. You hear it, so you have no problem of hearing your intuition, but you ignore it. So that
Mm.
is really what's happening on the soul level. Some people, they don't have a good intuition, they don't really hear it. Here you hear it. The soul is like, hey, like it's super clear. You feel it in your bones, but you say, hey, I'm going to follow the opinion of my friends and of my parents and of this and that.
Mm.
And so another example, for instance, with Santori. So Santori is the Bach Flower Remedies for boundaries. When you are, not very assertive, you kind of lack maybe the will to stand up against others. You're doing everything for everyone, and often people say, "Oh, Santori is for people who are too kind." Well, yes and no. If you're really doing something because you want to do it, because you are kind, then you wouldn't be exhausted after doing it, and you wouldn't be resentful because you don't have time for yourself.
Yeah.
So if you, which I was, I was kind, but in the end, I was becoming resentful towards others because I felt that there was an imbalance there, that I didn't want to do certain things.
Yeah.
And so what really happens is that you are doing this because most likely somewhere in your childhood you have learned, if I don't do this for people, then they will go away, or they won't like me, or they won't appreciate me, or they won't see me. So you feel unseen, unheard, not validated. So it's
Mhm.
again about permission, validation, but in a different way. But what really happens on the deep soul level, so even deeper than that, is that you don't hear yourself at all anymore. And there is no self. You have no
Yeah.
self-determination at all. And so that's when, if people do that for a long time, that's what Bach said, and what I really also see in my own life, that's when you get sick. When you deviate so much, when there is a battle between the personality and the soul says, hey, do this, and the personality just strays and strays and strays and is completely
Mm.
lost in the dark somewhere, and then you become sick. And I think that's why we become often sick when we are older, because then you've strayed so far that it has accumulated so much. So this is one of the ways I think that Bach Flower Remedies work very deep. Another way is that rippling effect. They ripple through your whole life. Just imagine me being 20 years old, having no life, being sick, no money, no job, bad friends. Every time someone in my family calls with drama, I am there to go and to solve it. Now imagine that only 10% of the times I start saying no. Simply, not something crazy, just 10%. 10% I say I'm too tired to come. I'm too tired to do this. Well, first of all, the people who expect you to say yes all the time, they will just gently look for another victim. You will literally, they're literally 10% less there to take your energy or any other resources. That 10% of your life, you can actually rest, or you can actually find clarity in seeing what is going on with your life. When you feel more rested and more clear in your life, you're in a better mood. When you're in a better mood, you make better choices. When you make better choices, you have more fun in life. When you have more fun in life, you restore your self-worth. When you restore your self-worth, you have better relationships. When you have better relationships, you have people helping you. When you have people helping you, it's easier to find a job because you have more confidence. If you have more confidence, you have a job, you have money. And it's like that is exactly what happened with my life. So people often think I'm going to get rid of this kind of anxiety. But if that anxiety determines, because we're not just talking about emotions, it's really a state. You're living in a state of something. If you can change that, you can totally change your whole life. I'm absolutely 100% convinced of that. And
Mm.
very beautiful with the remedies is that sometimes there are situations that don't really have any solution. Like they are so desperate that there is no clear solution at. And then the remedies do something with you, which just changes the dynamics. It's so subtle. It's not like you suddenly change or something. It just maybe you answer a little bit differently to people, or maybe you take a tiny little bit more time before you make a decision. Whatever it is, it can be so subtle that you barely notice it.
Yep.
But that can be totally life-changing. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, no, oh my goodness. I loved everything you just said. It was so beautiful. And I love how you're connecting the mental, emotional to the physical and just the ripple effect. Like I just think of it as the quantum ripple effect. And I see that so often in my practice. I sort of seen it myself. And it's just like so amazing. Like everything starts shifting. It's like almost like changing the channel, right? And then like
Yeah.
everything just starts changing, right? And all the dominoes just like follow along. And you're like, oh wow, look at all these things that just have gone on. And it is subtle. And sometimes
Yeah.
people don't see it. And they're like, they come to you and you sit down like, oh, so what's different? They're like nothing. And I'm like, okay. So then I start like diving in and I'm like, okay. And then it's like, oh, this, and this is there. Oh, you're getting a new job. Oh, you decided to change this. You
Yeah.
tried to do that. You left a relationship you didn't like, or like all these things that were, coming out. So I loved all that. And I love the connection to the mental emotional because I feel like if we really want to change the terrain of the person, physically, we have to be working on the mental emotional. And that's why I was also drawn to, Bach flower or
Hmm.
just flower essences in general. Because it's like to me, you shift the mental emotional terrain, you shift the physical terrain. Like that's way deeper than it is to shift
Yeah.
like just going after like the biochemical physical, like taking a supplement for your chronic fatigue or, that's like, okay, maybe you get a little bit of result, like, but the
Hmm.
reason why your energy was so drained is because you were being such a people pleaser and you had so much trauma
Yeah.
probably that needed to come out, up and out, right? And that is so draining. And then you do get to the resentment, right? Because you're just always people pleasing and then you feel resentful
Yeah.
for it. Like that is much more draining on our soul and our soul's energy and our physical
Hmm.
energy then people realize, and if we can, like you said, even that 10%
Yeah.
made such a difference, right? That little bit of those couple times you said no. And then I love that too about how, yeah, the people will find, they'll find somebody else. They'll realize that like it not only changes you and your vibration, right? And then it
Mhm.
changes the people who you interact with, right? Because
Oh
we're all
yeah.
quantumly entangled. So then they're like, oh, I can't, like something's shifting with this person's energy. So now I've got to like do something else or figure something else out or change my trajectory. Because I'll also hear that too from clients. They'll be like, you know, something happened with my husband or something happened with my son. And it's like because you changed, your energy shifted, then their
Yeah.
energy shifted. And they're not like that's what's really going on with us. So it's so fun. I love it.
It's amazing how you can change dynamics in families. Like for instance, I had a woman who just couldn't communicate her needs to her husband, and the husband was like completely fine, but that women and men often make disputes about what women are like. We always have to tell you, like why can't you just see this? And men are like, why don't you just tell it? I'm a simple man. It's just say it. And that was a really really strong dynamic there in this person's life. And she was thinking of divorce, so it was really really bad.
Mm.
And at some point, we were working with Bach Flower Remedies, and she said, it's so strange because I kind of, something inside me changed, and I was just much better to communicate if something didn't work for me. And now he's changed, and now we like found each other back. So they literally, I mean, she was on the verge of asking a divorce, and now they found each other back. And I also see the
Mm.
opposite happening. One of my very first official clients, let's say, that I had when I started really working, was a lady who was in a really abusive relationship. It was really, really bad. But I always try to not tell people what to do, even if I'm like, oh, you can't stay here, like a single day, you need to leave. I try to not tell people what to do.
Yeah.
But we worked with Bach Flower Remedies, and she actually came. Somehow she asked me, can you help me endure this situation?
Mm.
And so I immediately say, well, this breaks my heart. I can do that, but we can work, on you to help you develop certain things, or maybe stand up for yourself a little bit more. And so 3 months later, that we worked on her, she was extremely upset because they were going to divorce. And that made me in the beginning so incredibly insecure about myself, because I thought, wow, what am I doing? I'm breaking families apart here. That's not what I wanted. That's not what I signed up for. But
Mm.
then I think about, I don't know, 5 or 6 months after that, she called me to thank me, and she say, man, my life has been better than ever. Why didn't I do that before? I just couldn't do it. I couldn't get myself over it. So really full dynamics can change. And I recently had a really interesting situation with my cat Yuki, and for me it's much more dramatic than it will probably sound for you. But Yuki is very he's a quite he needs entertainment, let's say that. He's quite a piece of work. I love him, but it's not a beginner's level cat. But me, as a kind of pine person that feels a lot of guilt and worries a lot for others, even if I'm much better than I was, this is like, it's ingrained in me. And it really, our complete family dynamic was around that cat. And I was like, oh gosh, what do I have to come up today, to find something to entertain him, because he always wants something new, and otherwise he's in a bad mood. And then the whole family knows that he's in a bad mood. Siamese. And so I started giving him holly for anger, beech for irritation, cherry plum for pent up energy, because he always wanted to escape. But, there's a lot of cars here, so I wouldn't want that.
Mm.
And about 3 weeks in, he suddenly became so chill. I mean, and it's not like we drugged him or anything. He just started to relax, just lay in the sun, enjoy a cuddle. And all our time, how we were, me and my better half, we were like, oh, are you there for Yuki? And now it's like you wake up and it's all fine. The stress that brought in our family, and I love him dearly, I don't say that to point or blame, but the stress that it brought and the organization that was required for this was insane. It was very tiring. And now all of this is just gone. I wake up, there is no problems. He's super chill, he looks content, he's happy, he's playful, he's more playful than ever. And So this is also something I thought, okay, I need to move soon. I need to have a bigger garden for him. I was like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, I can't just move like this, And so Bach Flower Remedies bring solutions that you didn't even think of. And the solution is really mostly found in here and not out there. And that's exactly what they do, because if something changes here, then the outside world has to change. And that is exactly, I think, the strength of Bach Flower Remedies. They really deeply change you, but not in a way that they change you and you are someone different. You are more yourself, I would say.
Yeah,
And
that's how I see it. Yeah, it's almost like it's
Yeah.
bringing you drop by drop more in alignment with your soul. And then the energy leaks become, there's you work on minimizing those, right? And so
yeah.
even for pets, right? Like I have a
Yeah.
rescue Shiba Inu dog, and he has some cleanliness issues. So Vanessa was helping me identify some remedies for
Mhm.
Chicory and Heather, ironically
Mhm.
enough. So I'm getting ready to start those with him. But so, how, Michelle, do you see the quantum aspect of the remedies working, and then also the timeline issue?
Yeah, this is I mean, I keep getting more and more exciting here. So let's maybe start with the timelines. So as you know, time isn't like we think it is. There's not like past, present, future. It's more like almost stacked on each other. And to give you an example, so there is a Bach flower called impatience for impatience. So very simple. If you are impatient, you take impatience, and I can tell you that it works really well. I
Me
used to
too.
be.
Me too. When you're like right before your cycle and you got a little PMS and you're just a little bit more
Oh,
irritable and
yes.
impatient, like that is a good remedy to go to. I've totally used it. And it's funny, I don't want to interrupt you, but sometimes they work immediately and sometimes I feel like deeper things need a longer
Hmm.
time period of using it. And I wanted to ask you
Yeah,
that question too. So we'll go back to that. But go ahead, go back to your story.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So, I was really impatient, that kind of, and I don't mean sometimes impatient, like you were in the store and that everything takes too long and these old people everywhere and, oh my God, drive and, completely insane. And you could say, well, that's not a really a big issue, but if you live like that all the time, it kind of is very exhausting and it's frustrating and it's not nice and you want to work on your own and you make decisions in that way. And again, it's like not just an emotion, it's really a state of being. And so at some point I was in traffic and I saw something happening there. So sort of a situation coming together. And I reacted out of anticipation of something that was going to happen. But I was alone in my own timeline. All the other people were in their common shared timeline, so they didn't see all that coming.
Mhm.
Now, in the end, I was almost the person making the accident because I wasn't on their timeline. I was already ahead, and because I wasn't on that shared timeline, what I was doing made absolutely no sense. And or maybe I avoided making or avoided maybe another accident. Who knows? We don't know because there's billions of timelines. There's infinite amount of timelines. But what really happens is when you are in that impatient state, you are really in the timeline of the head. You have to do things immediately, as much as work as you can possibly do, and it needs to be finished now, not in a week. And so you kind of, or let's say your ego, your persona kind of wants to force a timeline on the world. You have your agenda, you want to get things done now. But the timeline of the heart, the timeline of nature, of course, has a much deeper wisdom than our little personal insignificant timeline. And so, what I think really happens when you take impatience is it obviously makes you less impatient, but it really brings you back from the head in your body in the natural timeline, in the timeline of the body, of the heart, really, instead of that kind of thing that you made up, really.
Yeah.
And another beautiful, and you do that with anxiety the whole time. When you're anxious, you're creating pathways and every time you're anxious about something that will never happen, it only happens to you because you focus so much on that timeline. It's unbelievable.
Makes so much sense.
Honeysuckle, for instance. Yeah. Oh God,
Mhm.
did I manifest stuff there? Unbelievable how powerful you can be with your mind.
I really think that, like, I really think our intentions are everything too. So that's another good question is that we'll go back to honeysuckle, but like also like having an intention around when you use these remedies also is really, really valuable. And just in general, I
Hmm.
think our
Yeah.
intentions are so powerful. So, but yeah,
Yeah, I
honeysuckle.
always say that when people take remedies, understand what you're taking, think about it for a moment, be intentional
Yep,
because I do think
exactly.
that will help the healing process. Absolutely. Yeah.
Totally.
So honeysuckle is a remedy that you will take if you would be very melancholic, very
Mm,
nostalgic, but in such a way that it's really painful. You're thinking about the relationship you were in when this person was still alive, when you were young, the good old days, whatever
mhm,
it is for you, which is very, very beneficial remedy for now since everything is going extremely fast. And so what
mhm,
really happens is obviously when you will take honeysuckle, the goal is to feel less melancholic so that you're, just not imprisoned in the memories of the past. You still have them, you still treasure them, but you're not imprisoned by that and you can move forward. But in my opinion, what happens is that the astral body, so let's say everything, and that's where also Bach Flower Remedies work. So they don't work physically, they work on the subtle body. So the astral body, let's say everything that is feelings, emotions, thoughts, aura, chakras, all that kind of, thing, let's say that I don't even know what to call it, the astral body, that thing is still in the good old days. It's still appreciating the good old days. The sentiment is still there. But physically, well, obviously, you're not in the past anymore. And so, because there is a mismatch there, because that astral body somehow isn't able to integrate fast enough, there is that terrible sense of melancholy, and you just can't move forward. And I really had that when I moved from Belgium to France. I never thought I would be such a person, but I
mm.
really couldn't at all. I mean, it's so beautiful here in south of France. I just went up to the mountain. It was full of snow, and I come down. It's like 17 degrees sun. It's beautiful. I couldn't appreciate it because I was so melancholic about the things that I lost about Belgium. And so, gosh, honeysuckle had just helped me so much. You just simply integrate that astral body and the physical body back so that you're, operating from that wholeness again instead of being completely fractured and all over the place. So that is one thing. When it comes to the quantum field, this is what I find so amazingly interesting about Bach Flower Remedies is let's assume that we want to extract my essence. So my essence wouldn't just be me here at, in my time it's like 6:44 at, what they are. I have no clue what day we are. 24 too. Yeah, me and time. I have no idea. If someone, if the cops, they always do the test if you are out of your mind to see what day you are, I will go to jail. So that's just how it is. I give up. But so if we would extract my essence, that wouldn't just be me here now in this exact moment. It would obviously also be me, my childhood, everything I've done, my memories, what I've experienced, my sadness, my happiness, everything. But it would also be my potential of everything that I will still do in the coming years, here as Michelle in this life. But further than that, it would also be everything that my ancestors have done and all their wisdom. It's like if you take a cherry from the tree, you're still that's part of the tree. It's not just a cherry. And now, if you would look at plants, it's really the same for them. So you're not just tapping into the information of one or a few little flowers from one or two different plants, which is already an insane knowledge in itself. You're tapping into the specific knowledge of that species over all the time in history and everything that is still to come. And if you just think about how insane that is, plants are far older than we are. The things they've seen, volcanic times, ice times, they've seen the planet being terraformed. Trees that are just lovely in a forest, and then suddenly someone decides to build a village there.
Mm,
And, of course, trees and plants, they're sentient beings, they have wisdom, they have intelligence, they need to adapt to all that. So they do all sorts of things. They evolve in all sorts of ways. They sometimes even change their chemicals to survive. And that is what you're really tapping into. So it's not just a drop to help you with anxiety and with fear and with sadness. It's the unlimited potential
Mm.
and memory and intelligence of this particular experience.
Mm.
So for me, it's always, I'm taking my little drops and I'm always thinking about that. And it's just mind blowing. I find it mind blowing, really.
Yeah, it's making me think of, I'm sure you've know Veda Austin's work, right? Or like things like
Yeah,
that,
yeah,
where it's like the water holds the information, right? And that just keeps
yes,
passing down like along the lineage. Like I feel like that's how we really, it's holding all of that quantum information, right? When we're talking about you, it's not just you and all your experiences, it's also your
yeah,
ancestors' experiences, so on and so forth. And the same thing with the plant. It's like all the things that their ancestry has kind of experienced as well. So it's like we're tapping into that all that information. It's just like that's what we're
yeah.
really tapping into in that memory. And that's just like it's if I don't know what's quantum, like that that's like so quantum.
It just
So
sounds so
interesting.
vast, right? There's so much.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
so
I mean,
how do we, with all this vastness and the timelines and stacked and then the history and stuff, how do we actually connect with, I mean, you consult with people and you guide them and you can use your sense of them and your experience to help match
mhm.
them with the best resonating remedy. So, for example, say someone who's just helping themselves, how do they call in, so to speak, the resonant, most resonant remedies or essences, rather? Sorry.
Mhm. So the most practical and easiest way is simply matching your feelings to the remedies, but in a way that you don't overanalyze. We always want to fix ourselves. Oh, I don't feel good. You see, I messed up. What do I need to do to fix this? That's really not at all how they work. I mean, that's how they work in the way of I feel guilty. I don't want to feel guilty anymore. But that can expose something else. Or, for instance, if you see that, like reading between the lines, if you can do that, but just keep it simple. If you're not good at it, just look at what you're feeling and match them to the remedies. But if you want to work in a, let's say, more intuitive way and kind of attract these remedies, because this is also a little bit quantum field, they are already trying to come into your awareness.
Yep. 100%.
100%. I've once seen a TED talk about a lady saying that I think she was a guide or something, and she was talking about Bach Flower Remedies, and she was telling, I saw a little patch of flowers there, and it looked like they were, coming towards me. But then I thought I was losing my mind, so I didn't say anything about it. But then one of her students mentioned, like, that was so weird. It was as if they were walking towards us. I mean, you know, I often say to people, look at what you have growing in your garden, and not just Bach flower remedies. All wildflowers have these, magical properties. I always say it's magical. I think it is magical. It's natural, but magic and nature are the same thing, in my opinion. If you don't have a garden, look on your way to work. What do you see there? You see in cities sometimes in the most insane places where you think nothing can grow here, and still something grows and blooms. It's unbelievable. Maybe in conversations, maybe in your dreams, numerology, images, symbols. And so you can definitely make, if you're not the person who wants to or is not really good at looking at yourself in that way, you can absolutely do that in a more intuitive way. In fact, yesterday evening I had a session with my students and we did that, and it was actually really fun, and you really get great answers doing that. So because what you're doing is you're calling upon a wisdom that is much greater than your own rational knowledge. You can know so much with your mind. It's unbelievable. We take care of diseases. We build bridges. Bridges. We can change reality. It's unbelievable. But the innate knowledge that it's just unspeakable. There's no match there. And so a really good way if people wanna dip their toes into these Bach flower remedies in an intuitive ways, I would just say look at the names of these 38 remedies, or maybe look at the photos of these 38 remedies, and just kind of, calm yourself down, leave the world a little bit behind, breathe a few times, and then simply ask yourself, what are my recurring patterns? What are these things in life that just always happen to me? It's so me that it happens. Maybe I don't go for the job that I want to go for, or maybe I'm too shy and never put myself out there. Maybe I am too dominant and people don't like that about me, and I could be a little bit more kind with others. Whatever it is, what is that thing? And then I would ask myself, after a few breaths, what would I need today? what would my life look like if that one thing, if I could solve that, because it gives you kind of the spirit, like, oh, okay, that would be good if that gets solved. And then I would ask, what is the one thing that you need? What is the one thing that you need today? And then I ask them to look at the photos of the remedies and just pick one remedy, one that they find beautiful, or a name that speaks to them, or they hold the bottles and they feel something, just one. And then separately after that, I don't do that in one go. So I don't ask them choose this and then choose that. I say, okay, we first focus on what you really love, and then you focus on what you don't like at all. Choose a remedy, a flower that you think, ooh, this is terrible. It's not nice at all. And so, yeah, it was interesting yesterday. And
Mm.
so, what you do with the first thing is you're really looking at what attracts you. And most of the time, what attracts you is something that you really want. Maybe something that you admire in someone else. That's why you choose your partner, because they have something that you love to have. You admire them. And the second thing that repels you often is something that or you have too much of, or there's this kind of a shadow side, something that you might want to look into. And so for me, it
Love
was
that.
interesting because, gosh, I forgot what it was, but the one that I liked was, it was so me that made so much sense. I don't remember it anymore. It's so stupid, but I'm like a naughty professor, so it makes sense for me. But the one that I didn't like, the flower that I really don't find beautiful at all, is Santori,
Mm.
the people pleaser. I'm like, oh,
And
I'm
that's
much
such a good remedy for you, right? It's like to
better.
me with this like that it's like kind of homeopathy like yours like the needing like what we need. I've seen this with colors too. Like the color that you don't like is the color that you need to be around, right? We had an episode with Jacob Lieberman and he was like whatever color you don't like because it like associates with a chakra, right? That color for me is red, but that's the color I probably need to be around, and that's like your root chakra, and there's a meaning to that, right? Like I resonate with more the like the lighter colors, like the blue and the
Mhm.
violets and the pinks, but not these like deeper like yellow and reds and oranges. Like I don't really love those colors, but there's a reason for that, right? The body actually needs it. And it's so funny. When I got into flower essences, I wound up booking a session with a practitioner because I'm like, I want to like be analyzed and see what somebody thinks of me. And
Mhm.
and I have a flower essence book and I read Willow and I was like, yeah, I'm not really resentful. Like, I don't think that's me at all, right? And then like, so when she was talking to me, she's like, she asked me if I was resentful, and I was like, I had like a pause, and she was like,
Mhm.
okay, yeah, uh-huh. I was noting it probably down. And then she's like, at the end, she's like, I'm gonna give you willow. I'm like, willow trees are my favorite trees, though. Like, so
Mhm.
there's something that I was drawn to. Like, I love sitting under a weeping willow tree. I have this like thought in my head of like having like a swing in a
Mhm.
under a weeping willow tree like as I'm older like and be sitting under the weeping willow tree like so obviously I'm drawn to that frequency
Mhm.
of the willow tree but I couldn't see it in myself because I'm like yeah no I'm not resentful but I'm like obviously there's something there. So it's like sometimes it's nice to
Yeah.
catch somebody else's eye because we can't see it in ourselves, right? And pine was another one. I love pine for guilt. It's such a great remedy. I use that one a lot. And I love sitting, like, I love the smell of pine. Like, the smell of pine, like, I'm so drawn to it.
Mhm.
So, nature's telling you, like, your body's saying, like, oh, this is a frequency that your body needs. This is the support for you. Because we're naturally drawn to these things. But it's like those synchronicities that we have to, like, pause and pay attention to
Mhm.
that can be challenging sometimes because what Heather's always saying, it's so true. Like we're so busy, we're so in the hustle, we're so in the like doing all of the things that we don't like
Yeah.
pause and notice those things as
Mhm.
much. So there's also that slowing down piece, which I think is
Oh
huge
yeah.
for people to like feel into these things. And as you start to play with these things and use these things, you'll notice more of it. You're like, oh, I'm really drawn to that, and then it might be something that's resonant and you
Yeah.
need that frequency. So yeah, I
I,
love
I think you really hit it on the head there because people always think like, what are your techniques? Like, I need to have more skills. And I used to be like that too. I mean, love skills, I love techniques, I love to know everything. But what I really found out when working on myself and with my students or with my clients is that very often it's extremely simple. We make it complicated. It just pausing and noticing. You don't need to analyze and what it, oh, and this is not good, and you start to completely go overboard. It's, I mean, it's also impossible to analyze everything. Sometimes I feel bad because I ate too much sugar. If I would start to analyze, what Bach flower remedy do I need? I feel completely messed up. None. You don't need any. You just ate too much sugar, or like, oh, I don't feel good at all. And it's like, yeah, we are in the year of the fire horse. This and this and this. You can do nothing about it. This is how it is. Suck it up. And so we are so off. Yeah, we are so often like, damn, I'm not good, and everything is wrong with me. And look at me, I'm not doing it good. And it's just like, well, that also says something, of course. There's where the Bach flower remedies can be taken. But there
Yeah.
is so much pressure to fix ourselves and to go faster and to, well, the most of the time, the thing we just need is pausing. Just
Yeah.
look, just look, how many things that I notice about myself by sometimes not even, you just kind of have a little thought and then you say, oh, that's interesting that I think like that. And like,
Mm.
whoa, this is it. This thing will save me. And just knowing it changes everything. It's like, I don't know if any of you has ever been to a psychologist, but I've once been, like, most of the time that doesn't work for me. It just doesn't, I don't think I have that brain, or I don't know. But once, or well, oh no, it actually was a cosmosoph when I think about it, but he could have been a psychologist because Jesus. And he said something, and it's just like, if you listen to one of the people you love and they have some kind of wisdom and you listen to them just say one sentence, and suddenly you're over something. Like, I had a lot of resentment when, what happened to my mom, because, she died in an awful way. And I just felt
Mm.
like I had to punish myself forever, because her death was so terrible that I need to punish myself. And my dad was a person who didn't really, he wasn't very emotional mature, he drank and he couldn't handle things. And he also got more on his plate than he could handle, I think. But when I went to a lady that helped me with my own, energetic problems or spiritual problems at the time, was a medium with a lot of gifts, in fact. And she said, your mom is already out of the hospital. You don't have to feel like this anymore.
Mm.
And I felt a little bit silly. I was like, yeah, that makes sense. But still, I want to punish myself. I want to suffer. And my whole identity was basically based around that, and just also have to sometimes not take yourself too serious and just look at what you're doing.
Yeah.
And at some point she said, it requires emotional maturity to get over something. Boy, did that give me a whack in the face. I was like, I don't want to be like my dad. That was it.
Mm.
Like, I just was like, I am emotionally mature. And so, years have passed, and I was like, for 15 years, like, no, I need to suffer. And then someone just casually says, it requires emotional maturity to get over. And just because I thought about my dad, I was like, oh, I'm not gonna be like that. And you know what? Boy, did I get over it. Yeah, unbelievable. That was it, because it hit some universal truth in yourself, and that's
Yeah.
what Bach Flower Remedies do. They kind of open the doors. Like, you have to walk through the door, but they open them and they walk with you. They walk, I swear, they walk through every single door with you. As long as you walk through it, they will always be there.
So
I
beautiful.
love
It's
that.
kind of like the idea of in nature, we have this idea of flowers as being soft and beautiful, but truly, nature is really about there's harshness and there's reality, and we have to find a
Yeah.
way to reconcile with what is true now. And I think
Mhm.
the further away we get from that, like it should be this way or should not have been this way, all of that line of thinking is what can create such dissonance for us. And then we get in the stuck states, which I love, Michelle, how you're identifying those as anxiety and depression. Those are stuck states. Like we're not able to be with the emotional reality of what is true. And
Mhm.
so then we can process those emotions through to completion. So the energy of the flowers and plants,
Mhm.
because they can only be with what's true now. Is it raining? Is it hailing? Or whatever the situation is, we are also sort of like snapping out of our stuck state trance. So I love
Yeah.
that comment that person made. What kind of person were they? You said they're not a psychologist, they were something else.
Yeah, because I was thinking I went to everybody, doctors, psychologists, the
Yeah.
mediums, cosmo, the whole everybody. I mean, I can't even find the words to explain them all.
Yeah, I get it.
This was a medium in Holland, and she was also a healer, and she actually brought me in contact with one of her, how would I say that? someone that she was helping out and training, and that person started to train me. And but that was
Mm.
the first time I met her. And I really always believed in the medium stuff, but I was very like, no, I'm gonna not say anything. And I asked someone else to call and to only say my name. I was on the phone listening to him, like, okay, don't, because I don't want to be scammed. It was so important for me, and so many charlatans and stuff. And what she told me about my mom was like, so I was completely prepared. I was like, I'm gonna ask this and this if something comes up. And I was so blown away. I just cried from the beginning until the end. It was unbelievable. But boy, did that need to happen.
Yeah.
That was a good one.
So
Sometimes you
interesting,
Yeah.
need
because
to,
I went to a medium after my mom died to try to work through that, because there's just so much trauma and ancestral everything. So,
Mhm.
and this is also a very gifted medium. She works a lot with grief. And she told me, you must have flowers in your life. You have to buy fresh flowers. Yes, this is years ago, you guys. This is probably like
Whoa.
2005. And she said, you have to have fresh bouquets of flowers in your environment every week. And of course, at that time, my mindset is like, I just can't afford that. It's so expensive. And here
Yeah.
we are, 20 was 2003, my mom passed. So here we are this many years later, and I'm thinking, well, I can find ways to bring flowers in my life. They don't have to necessarily, I'm pretty picky about my bouquets. I don't want the ones from the warehouses and stuff. Like I like
Hmm.
real fresh
Yeah.
wildflower type flowers. They're not easy to find out of season, right?
Hmm.
And so, but I can have the flower remedies. So let's do that. Yeah.
I love
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. This is the sign. And I mean, it just, I mean, I could talk so long about them. I hope I didn't, because I can get so enthusiastic, but
No, you're great.
it's
It's
unbelievable what they
fabulous.
can do.
No, I
Tell
love everything about this conversation so much. And I have questions for you. Like I'm thinking like sometimes I can take a flower essence, I can feel immediate shift, but like elm, like I
Hmm.
have a tendency to be very responsible and get
Hmm.
very overwhelmed, right? Like in life. And I've been taking elm for like say, I don't know, probably like 6 months. And it took me like a couple months on that
Hmm.
remedy to like feel the shift of it. And
Yeah.
I think that like that was my question to you is like sometimes things that are more, I don't know, maybe they're more surface or just like immediate can work really fast, but some things that are really deep, do you keep people on that same essence for a long time is my question because I've
Hmm.
noticed that that's helpful for me. And maybe it's just a really in deep ingrained pattern that I'm trying to like
Hmm.
shift, you know? Like so what is your thoughts about that? I had that question.
So there's a few things that I would say to that. One is some people are really sensitive and feel immediate shifts. I personally mostly don't feel immediate shifts. I really
Mm,
need to take that a little bit longer.
mm,
And depending on how deep something is or what layer comes down, sometimes you have a layer, then something else is exposed and you need to go back to a remedy. Sometimes you take one remedy and your thing is solved forever. Like that can totally happen. But in your specific case, Alan is also really good to help you understand where your limits are or where you could
yes.
delegate a little bit more.
Hmm.
But if I hear you, you are also very responsible and very feel guilty. So then
Hmm.
I would also take oak because oak people
Yes,
can't rest. They never
I'm
take a
taking Oak
break.
also. Yes. Yes.
Maybe also something like rock water because what happens somehow is that you are overwhelmed. Like alum is really when you are temporarily overwhelmed. So you just got too much, you're very responsible, and suddenly it just becomes a mountain. But if you
Yeah.
keep doing that, then you kind of need to look a little bit further. Like, okay, so what always brings me to that state of overwhelm?
Hmm.
And so if you are extremely responsible, if you never take breaks, you're very perfectionist, feel guilty if you rest, then you're gonna need alum for sure at some point. But then I would also work on all the things that really kind of build up to that alum state. And
Yeah.
so that's, I think, one thing that maybe your mix was not fully complete, that you may be missing really that oak energy, that
Oh no, I'm taking Oak as well.
um,
Yes. Yes, I'm
yeah. So
taking.
let me know how it goes. And
Yeah, yeah.
but yeah, alum is really specifically for temporarily overwhelm.
Mm.
And the problem is that when you have that kind of oak personality, the guilt and the responsibility and this kind of stuff, that you will often go back in that alum state.
Yes, I
You
actually
have
agree
that
on
very
that. Yeah.
often, it looks almost like you're in a perpetual alum state somehow.
Yeah, that brings me to another question then. It's funny that I just added rock water after listening to one of your videos. And I was like, oh, I'm gonna add rock water. So how many, do you have an issue with how many essences people take? Like, is my question. Like, is there like a limit or a number of how many you're taking, or do you do blends and do you find that there should be a limit of that? Or do you think it doesn't matter? It's your body's
Hmm.
gonna pick what it needs and resonate with what it needs? Because I'm curious your thoughts.
Hmm. Yeah, there's a lot of opinions on that. So Bach himself, he said that 7 remedies should be a maximum, but sometimes he was working with 11 remedies or with more than that.
Hmm.
Julian Barnard from Healing Herbs, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that he talks more about 5 remedies would be a good number. I think it's
Hmm.
very, very personal. But I always say if you don't need to take too many remedies at the same time, less is more. Because, if you take too many at once, it's almost as if you would take, imagine you need supplements and you'll just say, I'm going to take a mix of everything every day so that just to be sure. Your body wouldn't really understand you're working at everything at the same time. Well, it's almost as if these flowers have little voices. And if you're taking 3, then they can all communicate. But if you're taking 18, then it's like, hey. So I would kind of see it like that. Or if you're trying to color and you're mixing in paint, and at some point it just becomes brown and we don't really know anymore. So I
Hmm.
think, you know, take what you need, but in my opinion, the best results, in my opinion, are anywhere 5, 6, 7, but 7 max. Sometimes I give 8. Sometimes people are really like, yeah, but I really need this one. Take it then. It's not like it's not written in stone. You're not gonna do anything wrong. Um, but I would try to avoid taking more than that because you can just take your time with healing, and nothing, it doesn't all have to be solved in one go. And what I always advise is to start with what hurts the most. You're not going to work on being more grounded if you feel extremely despair. If you're in a super desperate state, don't start to work on melancholy or on, just work with that despair and with the anxiety and with the grief that you have, rather than saying, oh, I also have this and I also have that. Because very often when you work with the deepest, like, maybe not deepest, because the harshest feelings are most of the time more on the surface, and the ones that are more subtle and more sneaky and more hidden are often deeper. But very often when you take care of something, other things shift as well. And so I would say, anything under 7 or 8, if you can keep it under 7 or under
Yeah.
under 8, that's
I
good.
usually don't give more than 5 or so. Usually is what I stick around. But yeah, that's good to know that. Yeah.
But
I was
yeah,
just
if you
curious,
if
but
you
I love
feel
that
like
picture about
8.
the muddying the water with that's a great like a way to describe it because yeah, because the body can be how many stimuluses can the body really work on then? It can get
Mhm.
confused, right? It's like how many
Yeah.
things can it really work on? So that's really cool though. But yeah, I appreciate that. That's an awesome one. And I also had another question for you if you don't mind. There was I was wondering about because in like as a homeopath, like we know what substances cause what because it's provings, right? The person takes the
Mhm.
remedy over and over again in the crude form, and then we know like what does that symptom cause? What does that substance cause? So what does it cure, right? And my
Mhm.
understanding with Bach is that he kind of more like got downloads of what the flower could do. He wasn't like approving. It wasn't like they did. It was more
Mhm.
like a download. And then I was talking to somebody else and they were saying, well, they're doing provings on these flower essences. And my
Mhm.
understanding was that you couldn't actually get a proving. Like, so if you took the remedy you didn't need, it wouldn't really, nothing would happen. It wouldn't be approving of that. That's my
Mhm.
understanding. So I was curious your thoughts on all of that.
Yeah, exactly. If you let's say that you are taking a remedy for sadness, but you're not sad, then nothing would happen.
Right.
So that's the good news. You can't really do anything wrong. If by mistake take the wrong remedy, then you wouldn't really, you wouldn't have any negative effect. And if you somehow need it, but you don't know you need it, well, then you will still have the positive effect of that.
Yeah.
And so that's somehow the really good news. You can really try things out because people are very often scared to do. What if I don't have the right combination? It will literally make no difference, except of course from the let's say, a fairly small economical damage that you do because if you buy a bottle that you totally don't need. But for the rest, nothing can really happen. And yeah, I don't know if that answered your question actually, if that because
Yeah,
Dr.
no.
Doolittle is going again here.
Yeah, that's perfect. I was curious about that. Yeah, so you really can't develop a proving if you've taken the wrong remedy or
Oh
nothing will
no,
happen. Yeah, okay.
nothing will happen. For
Yeah,
instance,
okay.
if I give when I gave remedies to my cat Yuki, I put it in the drinking bowl of the two cats. So the other cat was also drinking it, but
Right.
that's
Right.
not a
Whatever.
problem at all.
Yeah, it only works if it resonates with your field and you need it. That's how I feel like it.
Yeah.
So even if you had a combination remedy, right? You made
Mm-hmm.
like I make custom combinations and I say I put five in and one of them is not right. The other
Mm-hmm.
four will do their work and it doesn't matter. It's not going to
Yeah.
hinder it, right? So to me, it's
Absolutely.
like, the body picks what it needs. And maybe
Yeah.
today your body needed pine, but the next day it needed elm and the next day it needed century and it's going to just take what it needs. And that's how I feel, right? So because maybe in that moment you didn't need that one, but the
Mm-hmm.
body's going to resonate with something else that it did need, right? So
Yeah.
I see it that way. So
Yeah,
yeah,
that's
this
the beautiful thing with the remedies. You can't really make a bad mistake or anything. If I
right.
could be my whole life on a remedy that I don't need, it would do absolutely nothing.
Yeah, exactly. It's a little different than homeopathy because homeopathy with remedies, if you take a remedy that you don't need
Mm-hmm.
um, frequently, or it could actually you could cause a
Well, it's
proving.
good that I know that because I still have these little, remedy bottles, or I don't know how you
Yeah.
exactly call them. And I'm like, oh, it's kind of sad to leave them there. I'll just sometimes take some, but yeah, that's how I roll
It's
sometimes.
probably fine.
Well, I think that's your intuition too also knows. And I find this is interesting is that like when you don't need that remedy anymore, whether it's a flower essence or a homeopathic remedy, you will intuitively not be drawn to it as much and it will sit on your counter and you will forget to take it. And then when you do, you will be gravitating towards it because you need it more. Because I really think that we are
Interesting.
that innately intuitive and
Yeah.
and maybe it's just because I'm a Scorpio. I don't know. But I feel like that's true, like of people. Like you'll be able to figure that out if you pay attention and you slow down enough. I think that you'll
Hmm.
you'll gravitate towards what you need. So I think that that's awesome. Yeah,
Yeah.
this has
And
been
there we are,
so fun.
slowing down.
So
Yeah.
so the beauty of it is that we can self-prescribe and use our intuition and really gain a lot from that and have good effects. And if people want to refine their approach and really tap into the whole world of flower essences, I'm imagining that your course addresses that. So I'd love to hear about your course, Michelle, and why you created it and how what the ideal students would be for your course.
Mm.
Yeah, so that was really one of the things that happened during COVID. I was like, gosh, how are we gonna get out of this mess? Like, I mean, you can't vote yourself out of this stuff anymore. It's not gonna happen. And so I thought, everything is so fake and so crazy that soon we already don't know what's real anymore because everybody's lying all the time. All the media, it's just a bunch of crap. And so I
Yep.
thought, well, with AI, like you will literally not know anymore. Like you can even, now you can still look at reality, you can look at television and match it to reality and see what's going on, which is already difficult for some people. But then we will go next level. So the only thing that you can really trust on is your knowing, the deep knowing.
Mm.
And so that's when I really thought, um, I just kind of felt so helpless when I thought, what are we gonna do? And then I thought, I really wanna, I mean, if anything I can do, I cannot change the world, I cannot save the world on my own. But I do think that through making yourself you know, as good as you can, understanding yourself, trusting yourself, living from the heart and not from fear, I really do think that that changes the world. So then I thought, I'm going to make a course so that people can do this themselves because it makes so much sense. Bach, I mean, he wrote Heal Thyself, Free Thyself. He didn't write go to a practitioner and let them heal you. He wrote Heal Thyself,
I
it's
love
so
that.
simple. Heal thyself, free thyself. And I mean, his intention was to make something that was so simple, so easy, so affordable, so natural that you could do this yourself. And I truly 100% believe that. And I'm the living proof of that. But that's in reality not what happens. most people, they go through a practitioner, and that's really nice. And I mean, I love my clients, but I mean, if you can have this very simple knowledge and you can have this for the rest of your life, you can share it with your friends, your families, you can use it on your pets, on your plants, everything. I mean, that would be really awesome. And so I started to make this course to help people to, not to have a more information or practitioner's degree or anything like that, but to simply help themselves heal their emotions and their life using the course. So we learn, kind of to slow down, listen to yourself. We learn what Bach Flower Remedies are. We go over all the remedies. We learn all the practical stuff, how to dosage, how to make them. But then also different ways of working with remedies. Do you want to, do this in a really rational way, almost like a practitioner would do? Would you prefer to have an index? Maybe you really need more support and a more of an entry point. Or maybe you prefer to work with symbols and on a more intuitive way. And so I try to, and also the last module that I'm restructuring right now, I'm really trying to put all the, not more techniques, but all the kind of more wisdom than knowledge, all the things that I think are important to know. And so that was really the intention, to give people the tools to do it themselves. Because again, I'm really in line with Bach when he says heal thyself. And I mean, I still have a long way to go in a healing process. It's not just an end point, like now I'm healed, there's always something else coming. Life has its seasons. But with these Bach Flower remedies for myself, I can say that I have I mean, I have all the tools and the weapons, and I'm a sorcerer and a warrior, and I'm Harry Potter, everything at once, I have it all. Like, I feel so much more strong to cope with things
Mhm.
and so my intention is really to give people that power to them, so that they can also just harness the natural power of nature, like the beautiful power of nature, just at your fingertips.
I
And
love that.
even
Is it?
you don't have to work with me, you don't have to buy my course. Just, you can literally look on the internet and do this yourself, knowing that you can't make a mistake, that it's safe. I mean, it's
Yeah.
for most people affordable to buy one or two stock bottles. So definitely just, have a look at it, because there's a whole world there that's just amazing to work
Mhm.
with.
Oh, I love that. Thank you so much for sharing all of that. Is your course evergreen? Like is it like just all online or is it live?
No, it's online, it's self-paced, and every month we do an extra lesson, which is also in the library of the lessons. So everybody can just start at their own pace, follow along, be active or be in the back, whatever floats your boat. It's very personalized, let's say.
Yeah, that sounds amazing, and I think people should definitely jump on it if they've not like got into flower essence. Because you can learn too online, but it is nice to have a course to really like keep the structure, right, of that and keep
Mhm.
you learning of that. So it's beautiful, and I think you're offering so many beautiful gifts to the world, Michelle. Where can people find you? Where can they work? Are you taking clients currently,
Mhm.
and where can they find all your information, work with you, share all like where people can access you?
Mhm. Yeah, so I have a website where people can contact me or make appointments for one-on-one consultations.
Awesome.
Um, what else am I doing? Because I'm also more unrelated, doing things like radiesthesia. But for the Bach flowers, it's really the one-on-one consultations mainly, and the course. I also have a remedy group, which is a little community. If you want to join, you can join for free. You have lifelong access then if you join now. And we just kind of, talk together. How are we doing? How to work with Bach flower remedies. There's like little free courses. We also do live sessions. Sometimes it's a little lesson. Sometimes we just hang out and have a coffee together. We just try to learn together and share experiences there. And of course, YouTube. All the information there is free. So if people just want to kind of get to know the Bach Flower Remedies, or if people just want information, everything there is free. And I will love that people just, whether they're looking at my videos or choosing completely another path, I would just really definitely tell people to have a look at that, because it just unbelievable what you can do for yourself with these beautiful Bach Flower Remedies.
Yeah, and you're a beautiful testimony to that. And it's just, I love it. So, yeah, we're so grateful for you coming on and chatting with us and sharing
Thank
all
you
your
so
wisdom
much.
today and all about these Bach flowers. And we'll have in the show notes where people can find you. So, yes, thank you so much.
Thank you,
Thank you
Michelle.
so much as well.
Thank you.